Welcome to another episode of The Creative Aspect. This is a podcast about marketing, branding, advertising, and everything else in the creative world. This is a podcast for creatives by creatives, and today I'm truly honored to interview this great individual. I could give you her accolades, but I'd rather pass her the mic and have her introduce herself. So, Sofia, how would you describe yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me. I would describe myself as an entrepreneur, a publicist, a project developer, and all of those umbrellas just under the scope of being enterprising.
Enterprising. Speaking of, this is your hat, isn't it?
Yes.
So I was going to wear this hat, but
Light
you know
plug.
what I mean? We thought about it, and I was like, nah, maybe
We
it'd
don't
be
wanna
doing too
force
much
it.
with the outfit. We don't want to force
Yes.
it, right? But everything we do here is what?
On purpose.
Period.
I love it.
So, in layman's term, how would you describe everything you do as an enterprise?
Sure. I think at my core, I'm really managerial.
Okay.
And also a strategist.
Okay.
Just knowing how to get brands, honestly, even people from point A to point B. And it's something that I've always wanted to have more so a portfolio of businesses I'm a part of,
Right.
and not just one lane.
Okay.
So it's something that I try to use those skills to support that and also just grow as a leader in that field. And my biggest motivation and heart behind things is really creating a bridge for others to walk over and be able to enter into their fields that they're called to. So that's really like my passion behind stuff.
For those listening or watching this, you might hear the noise in the background.
So sorry.
Don't worry about it. You live somewhere too, so it's cool. Second, I will tell you that I didn't send any of these questions to Sofia, so anything and everything you're hearing is off her heart, and it just speaks to her professionalism. Yeah. What is your background essentially?
Yeah. My background is really in my family.
Okay.
So I come from a family of entrepreneurs, even whether it was they were doing it full time or on the side while they had another 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be. But both my mom and my dad kind of come from that background. My dad did it for himself more so because my grandparents had more traditional jobs.
Okay.
But my mom comes from a family where my grandfather was a pharmacist, had his own practice in that way. My grandma had her own sewing factory. So I've always been around entrepreneurs and creatives, but I think that where I kind of found my niche was bringing order to what they were doing. Even as a little girl, I would like see stuff my mom and dad were doing, and I would help put it together. Like even as like a teenager, younger even.
Right.
So I think I would say like my background starts in just seeing it around me on a familial standpoint, and then as I grew, realizing like, oh wait, people do this like as their careers, or people around me are doing this, whether it was like social media or just people in the community. And I kind of saw, I think a lot earlier than maybe now is popular, the fact that you can actually like make a living from things that you do naturally, and things that you love.
Right.
So I would say like my foundation is really just seeing what people were good at. And supporting them to continue doing it. Okay.
And were you born and raised in America?
Yes, I was born and raised in America in the DMV. Shout out to Moco. I've lived in all parts of Moco.
Okay. What's your favorite part?
Oh, that's a good question. I have favorites for different reasons.
Okay.
So the Burtonsville, Silver Spring area is very nostalgic for me. So it's a favorite for the nostalgia.
Okay.
But then Darnestown, Germantown area.
That's crazy.
Shout out to Darnestown, Germantown area. Even though I wasn't like a younger child there, that was like my high school, teenage years. So I have a lot of love for that area and just like me growing up.
Okay.
In that way. But, yeah.
So young, like let's take it back. Young Sofia, would you have envisioned with every project and affiliates and brands you've worked with, would you have envisioned from that young age that you would be where you're at?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know it would be on this.
You said that with confidence, so say it again.
Yes. Because I was like that young girl who was, I don't know, looking at like music credit, like in the CDs.
Yeah.
Like who did what. Nobody was doing that stuff then, or reading magazines. Like I really loved Outkast, very random. And I remember just reading Andre 3000's story and how he'll like make clothes, and he's actually part of the reason why I wanted to be in fashion eventually.
Okay.
But I had more, like I've always wanted to do different industries, but just kind of, I've always been intrigued by people who were great at what they did.
Okay.
And I knew that I wanted to be in the industry of creativity in some way.
Right.
I knew I wasn't like the person to draw or design or whatever, but I knew I wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
So I didn't I would say young Sofia didn't know everything that existed in creativity, like on the business end, which is where like I thrive and what I love to do. But I knew that I would be involved in some way.
At a certain capacity.
At a certain capacity, yeah.
Right.
Even if it was just a dream,
right.
I knew like, okay, at my heart, I want to be a part of creativity in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. And as you're speaking, it's like it just shows how many different bags that you have, like, you know, the ability to be able to reach your hands into different facets. I think also those who don't know DMV, like they don't understand how it's a melting pot of different cultures and backgrounds.
Yes.
So could you speak to how that contributed to how diverse you are in yourself?
Sure. That's a great question. So that is something I think is so special about the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. And I quite literally mean all three areas.
Is Baltimore like, part of that?
Baltimore is for me because I went to UMBC.
Okay.
So shout out to UMBC. When I say DMV, I include Baltimore.
Okay.
Personally. Now it's popular. Everybody wants to include Baltimore. Right. But I've always included Baltimore. I have a lot of
Baltimore,
love.
so we're showing you love. Yes. If you're from there, we're showing you love right now.
I have a lot of love for Baltimore because that's my college years. But yeah, I just think that the melting pot of the DMV that's so beautiful is there's so much enterprise around us.
Okay.
And it's not always that people recognize how big it can be.
Right.
And so I think our generation is doing a better job of really shining the light and really loving where we're from.
Right.
I think early people like Wale and stuff like that with music did that. But now like we're seeing like, oh wow, like it's really cool this person owns a restaurant and this person does this and this person has a store and whatever. But I would say the melting pot nature of it is really like the diversity of the cultures, the people, just the services. And really, I think that what's also special about the area is that we figured out a way to do what we love and also still have time for family and friends.
Wow.
I think that's what makes this area so special because like I've been blessed to be able to live in like New York or do projects in other places.
Right.
You know, even overseas, like in Ghana and things like that. And I think that also what makes our area special is just like Black and brown people really getting to do things that they thrive at. Like, of course, a lot of us have like foreign parents, so we do what we have to do too. Like, you know, I didn't necessarily know I was going to be an entrepreneur. I thought I would do it, but I didn't know it would be like full time in this way. Right. Or maybe it would just be like, oh, I just might work for my parents. But I didn't know that I could have all of these opportunities. But I think what's so great about the DMV is that that melting pot really exists even in the industries. Right. You might see somebody who works in IT, but then like on the weekends, I don't know, they're a painter. Special.
I know so many people that,
it's very special. And so I think here we're good at taking what will make our living and using it towards what we really love. But something I feel like I'm really passionate about is helping people to merge the two.
Wow.
Like you can make a living from what you love. Right. That's like my whole life purpose. Wow.
So do you often encourage that? Like if it's a passion, but you can make money from it?
Yeah.
Because I know some people that they kind of differentiate it. It's like, okay, this is my passion project. This is my but this is the first time I had someone tell me that like you intentionally bridge those two kind of gaps. So
definitely,
is that something you often encourage?
I do encourage it just because I think sometimes we don't do certain things because we think that we can't live off of it. But I believe that we can. Right. We just haven't been exposed to how we can. And of course, don't get me wrong, there's also room for, oh, this is my passion project. That's just for me. And I respect that. Like there's things that I've always told myself, okay, I'm not going to charge somebody for that because I just want it to be for me. Right. But I think in the sense of like things that you know you do love and like different aspects of something that you love, I do think that there's a way to create that lifestyle from it, even if you know you do need that 9 to 5 for a little bit to get your money up, get your savings up, pay your bills. But eventually having that business acumen or being connected to somebody with that acumen that can help you grow it. I think it's very possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really good response.
Thanks.
As someone who like has a lot of ventures, it's kind of hard explaining why I think there's nothing wrong with seeing if you can make income from it, right? Because if you're going to do it anyways, like you might as well get paid for it, you know, as long as like the heart,
as long as you want to, unless it's like special to you. Yeah.
Exactly. So moving on from that, I want to focus specifically on the PR aspect. So in terms of that, do you feel like everyone who starts a business like needs a PR team? Or do you feel like you have to like hit a certain threshold, like in order to bring on a PR team? You know, is that once you get to a Fortune 500 company, or is that like you're starting in the basement? And the second question tying to that is, if not a PR team, what are certain things that someone can do to kind of emulate that?
Yeah, so I think I get this question a lot, and it's something I'm always thinking about too.
Okay.
But I think that a lot of times people don't realize there's a difference between brand development and publicity. So PR is bringing the publicity to expand what you've done, but the brand development is really what you need to work on first,
right,
to then get to that place of publicizing it. So now there's some publicists like myself who we do focus on brand development and helping brands understand who they are, who they're there for, what they do.
Okay.
But there's also some publicists that after you figured it out, they want to pick it up with you and run with it and support you on growing it. So in that sense, you really have to figure out what type of team are you aiming for to see when you should start with the PR team or a publicist. However, a publicist is just like a singular person doing it, or like a PR representative is another way to say that. However, I do think that brand development piece is important, really getting into like, what is the brand story that you're telling? And the brand story, you might have a core story, and then based on the phases of your brand, it's publicized accordingly. Because you may have a core story, but perhaps in this one season, you're focusing on giving back. And then maybe another season you're focusing on recruiting for the brand. Another season you're focusing on launching a new product. So your focus will always shift with the brand story, but the core will always be the same. And so I would say that a brand is ready for PR when they really identify what is our core message, and then what are those associated messages from that core message. That's when you know you're ready. Whether you're Fortune 500 or a small mom and pop, or it's just you, when you know your brand core message, you're ready for PR. But I also say, beyond knowing the message, of course, just being understanding of like, what are the financial means that you have to invest in that. Because PR is not something that happens overnight. And so whatever arrangement you're making with someone, whether it's like a month-to-month retainer or you're paying them just for a service, like to launch something, I always recommend, if you're a smaller brand that's tight on budget, start off first with just like, okay, we want a package to have this launch event or this launch online. Start with that. See how things go and kind of build from there. Because PR is an ongoing investment. And you don't want to feel slighted because something didn't happen overnight. But the reality is that it's not going to happen overnight. Even the biggest publicists in the world are on a schedule with journalists or have to kind of see how society is moving. Like, you may have an entire plan, and then something like COVID happens and you have to shift it. You can still thrive in that environment amidst all the adversity. However, you have to have a patience when it comes to working with a PR professional. If you expect things to happen overnight, you're just going to be frustrated. You're going to waste money, in your own opinion, and you're going to feel like nothing's moving ahead.
Personal brand, right? How important is personal brand tied into the overall brand of your company? Yeah, so the personal brand is very important, whether or not you are the face of your brand. So there's some people who are in the background of their brands, but when you dig into their portfolio, you find out like, okay, oh, this brand belongs to them, or they're a part of this brand. So, but that still speaks to, what do you want your brand to be known for? If you want your brand to be more about the community of the brand and what you're offering, you don't really have to be out there promoting yourself all the time. Like, there's plenty of brands that are owned by one person that we're not even aware of because they've positioned things outside of them to be about the brand. Now, if you want a brand that's more like service based and more personable, I will say in that case, you need more of a personal brand. However, even your personal brand is up to you. Like, sometimes people think personal brand means you have to follow me to the grocery store and do a vlog. And that's not true. If that's your personality, sure. But there's some people who really want a separation from their work and their personal life. And so your personal brand, in that case, you might decide, you know what, let me be known as a teacher. Let me teach people what I do in my industry or my field. Let me give back with content. Or your brand might be, I want to have speaking tours. I want to connect at universities, whatever the case may be. Your personal brand doesn't have to be limited to just like your personal, more of an influencer style. You can also make it creating more of a, I'm becoming an expert style, or I'm providing value in teaching. So I would say your personal brand is important, but it doesn't have to be this restricted thing of like, you must know everything about me. There's people with amazing personal brands. You don't know anything about their relationships, their personal life, their children. That's a great point, And so I think that when we hear personal brand, because of the word personal, we take in and we think that it means the intimate details of our lives.
But your personal brand can literally just be how you want to present yourself.
Wow.
And how that affects everything else.
Okay, so do you feel like that is something that you should dictate, or do you kind of listen to your audience and let them dictate that for you?
Yeah, so I would say you should dictate it.
Okay.
Because if you let your audience dictate things for you, you're going to be miserable and the brand is not going to last. However, after you determine what it is, you also need to be flexible. Because sometimes you may establish something and your audience tell you, well, actually, I like this more about you.
Wow.
And it's up to you then to decide, okay, am I going to let you guys have that?
Right.
Or do I want to keep that to myself, but maybe I incorporate more of that into the brand?
Okay.
So maybe your audience might say, oh, man, we love seeing like you on vacation.
Right.
You may not want to show your vacations all the time.
Right.
However, you might want to carve out a separate part for your brand where you're purposely going on trips for the brand. And then that can be how, okay, I'm showing you guys this part of me that I love with travel, but you're not going to know about like my honeymoon, right? It's like you can get creative about how you're showing it.
You're dropping bars right now.
Thanks.
If you were a rapper, what would your rapper name be?
Brand me.
What is it?
Brand me.
Brand me? I feel like you thought about this because you said it so quick.
No, it just came to me. I'm good with names.
Brand me. That's cool. It kind of sounds like Brandy.
Yeah, actually, or like bars.
Oh, I like that. It's like I thought about as I said that, I thought about Brandy. Technically her name has brand in it, so that could be something too.
Shout out to Brandy. She has a Christmas album coming out.
Is it gonna
I think
go against Mariah Carey's? Because like
no,
around
Mariah's
November,
the queen of Christmas, and she's about to become a billionaire actually.
What?
Yeah, they just reported it. I think by 2026 or 2024.
What?
Yeah, all of her revenue from things.
From I mean, she's a great lyricist, but like
and also
Christmas.
like songwriting, everything. Now, see, that's a great personal brand, Mariah, and even Brandy. Brandy has a great personal brand. She did acting.
Yeah.
She did music. Yeah. Even her brand now, like on social media and encouraging other artists.
Or I guess Keke Palmer reminds me a bit of her.
Brandy. I think she's a little bit goofier, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, definitely. But like you could tell they know their audience.
Yes.
And they understand.
And they know what to do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, I'm talking just about the brand aspect. Whatever they do in their personal life,
yes,
that got nothing to do with me. So don't come on here talking about they did this or did that. I don't care. All right, going back to the topic of marketing, how do you see PR evolving? Right, you see social media like it's changing from the TikToks, and I believe like as we enter like the VR realm and all that, there's gonna be so many more things to manage and control. How do you see PR evolving in that digital space?
Yeah, sure. I think PR is evolving according to the type of clients that you have. Okay. So if you have clients that are more traditional, they want to they think PR is only media, which I don't believe in.
Right.
You're probably not going to work with some more innovative type of publicists because we're not limited by that.
Right.
However, if you are the kind of brand or client where it's like you're willing to see what can we do to show our brand message in different ways, right? Like brand messaging can be, or PR events, for example, it could be a watch party at a movie theater. PR could be giving out donations during the holidays if you have like a nonprofit. PRs, there's so many things. And not to say, and I think the word PR also, people have made it a negative word to act as though it's not genuine, but publicity can also be genuine. You can purposely say, I want to be there for the community and do X, Y, Z. And I want to promote myself while I'm doing it so that more people can join us to support the community. So that's like, yes, we're using publicity to tell the story of support, but it's genuine because I really want to help the people in my life or the people that my brand is supporting. But I do think PR is evolving now where we really have to listen to our clients and see the type of clients that they are to know what type of publicist we want to be. So if you have a type of clients that, for them, the end all be all is still, I want to be on Billboard, I want to do Inc., I want to do Forbes. And if you're that type of publicist, then you're going to go all the way with media, even as media transforms, because even media is different now, right? Like all of these outlets have podcasts, they have videos. You're not subjected, even with media, you're not subjected only to a magazine. So even that has evolved.
That's
true.
But
on the other end too, if you want to work with brands that are more innovative and are like, oh, let's just do PR boxes in the form of like QR codes, like people who really get excited about doing new things, then I would say the biggest lesson from both sides is just figuring out how you want to evolve with brands. Because really the job of a publicist is to amplify what the brand is doing, or to help them discover what they should be doing.
Right.
And so based on that would determine how much you're evolving. If you work with brands that are evolving, you also will evolve. If you're working with brands that are taking more of a traditional route, then you also will be more traditional.
That's a really good insight. So in your history with working with different clients and brands, like what are some fun projects that you've worked on? What are some exciting, I mean, you don't have to, say the specific clients if you don't want to, it's up to you. What are some fun projects that you've worked on? And what did you learn from it? Like what were some key takeaways from it?
Yeah. I think I've had the privilege to work on some really amazing projects over the years. Since even since I was an intern or in college, I can't choose just one, to be fair. But I will say my biggest takeaway from them for sure was the human connection. Because I realized that I think before I actually did the work of PR, my assumption was that brands and publicists tell people what to believe in or tell them how they should feel about something.
Yeah.
My view on it is totally different now. I now feel like it's up to us to listen to what our audience is experiencing from us.
Okay.
And then taking that to produce more for them.
Okay.
And so I would say like some of the most amazing things I've done have been things where it's like, even if it's a 1-day event or 2-day events where people are actually coming to interact with products and interact with the brands that are there. I think that has been amazing in the sense of being able to really get down to like, what does the customer actually enjoy about this? Because what I've learned is that sometimes a brand can be so excited about a detail that the customer really doesn't care about. And the customer is really like, oh, like, for example, a brand might be like, oh my gosh, we use eco-friendly packaging.
Right.
And customers are really more concerned with the fact that they love your colors. It's like, it's one of those things that I love the experimentation of PR. I would say like that's the side of PR that I really love. And nothing's perfect, so there's definitely sides of it I don't enjoy. But the experimentation is what I love. And I would say even like having the chance to work with clients that have worked in the Metaverse and things like that, that has been incredible. Because while everybody was freaking out about, the Metaverse, getting to work with brands that understood how to use it for themselves. Yeah. And not to be pressured by it. Like, okay, we're going to use it for this project. When we're done, we're done. We might come back to it. Right. That was amazing too, just to show me that, oh wow, like you can have branded activations in the Metaverse too. Things like that. So I would say like among my favorites have just been brands that are open-minded. Right. Because then it also challenges me as a publicist to see what they could do.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were talking about Metaverse.
Yes.
Do you have a guess as to like when you think we'll be, as a society, fully integrated into the Metaverse?
Yes. I personally think a lot of the powers that be will not allow full integration ever. That's just my opinion. Okay. Because like
you said a whole lot without saying a lot.
Yeah, because like a lot of jobs rely on us not having full integration.
Right.
So I don't know if full integration will be possible, but I definitely see like at least 60 to 70% by like the time our kids are our age. Like, wow. Because I think that the Metaverse will always be there, but it's kind of like social media, right? It's like Microsoft and all these companies have programming, but then somebody has to come and take it and make MySpace, or excuse me, even before MySpace, Zynga. Like it's like it's very slow. Then there's going to be tweaks, and then because behind the bottom line is that behind the Metaverse, behind anything with tech, it's still humans.
Yeah.
And if you think about how long it takes humans to evolve, it's not a very fast process.
Right.
So I think that we can look at humans to know that, okay, it takes us a while to get used to certain stuff, so we should probably expect the Metaverse to take a while too. Even though not to say we shouldn't be privy to it or shouldn't educate ourselves on how to utilize it now, right? Because the first frontiers of stuff always get the most benefits. So not to say people shouldn't use it now, but as far as like when the general society, those that are not in like the creative world or those that are not in the kind of very innovative industries start to use it, like, you know, the same way we all go to the grocery store, when will we all use the Metaverse? I think it will take the time that it takes for humans to evolve. Right. And that's something I think people are still figuring out.
And I think I enjoy the way you kind of broke it down, just because I think when people think of the Metaverse, their mind quickly shift to it, like the gimmicky side of it. So it's great to have a professional speak on the impact that it could have. But along with that, do you think there's current trends happening that like we should keep? And when I say we, the audience listening to this, who owns a business, like, are there trends that you think that we should keep in the frontier of our minds? Or are there elements in branding that you think like we should pay attention to as we, get into this next phase of the internet?
I would definitely say figuring out ways to merge both the tech world and in-person experiences. So maybe it's that, okay, yes, we're still going to conferences, we're still doing things in community, which I really think is where we're kind of shifting now, especially after COVID. People want community, they want experiential brand experiences. And that's just a fancy way of saying like being with a brand tangibly. But I think that something to keep in mind is figuring out, okay, so how do you connect both the tech that can support us to accelerate things and that in-person connection? So it might be that when somebody's checking into your event, you have like a QR code scavenger hunt, or it might be that like there's VR at an event that somebody can like put on and
if any of y'all use a strategy, I want you to Venmo, Cash App, Zelle her, okay?
Sofia Maame.
So don't be out here using the strategy, and we will find you.
We will find
don't use these strategies without paying her. Not for real, though.
But yeah, so like really being able to integrate it. Maybe there's like a giant, I don't know, display, and you're operating a metaverse character on the screen with others and kind of exploring it together.
Is that expensive?
Honestly, no. Like if you use a free metaverse website online. Okay. Sorry, the name is escaping me, but
no, don't even say it. Listen, if you're not gonna pay us, don't expect
say it. If you use it free online and you blow it up on a screen, it's just like doing a projector with HDMI, so it's not expensive. Wow. I think people just don't always think about it. Right. It's kind of like going to like a modern art museum.
Yeah.
It's like integrating both.
Okay.
I see that happening because even like when I was a freshman in New York, like before coming down to UMBC, we used to go to the MoMA a lot, like when like the Modern Museum of Art before it became like a thing, because this is like 2011, and we went to this one exhibit where it was just like bowling balls on a screen, but I realized now they were showing us like VR in the metaverse, but we just weren't interested because it was like, okay, we're just watching a screen, but the artist was trying to show like digital activation, like he basically displayed a gallery using digital content. Right. So now it's like common, and people will go to those kind of exhibits. But when we went as a school, it was like, okay, you want us to just watch a screen at the museum.
I find it funny, like how tech works in that realm. Like, if you remember MySpace, right? Like, there's an ongoing joke about like how we really were writing codes just so we could put music on. So it's like
or even Zanga, you really coded.
Yeah. But so I find it funny about tech like that. You've been doing these things for years,
and you just didn't know it.
You just didn't know it.
It's kind of like the metaverse. I always compare the metaverse to playing The Sims. I was obsessed with The Sims.
That's still,
and it's very similar.
Remember, yoo-hoo.
Yeah, the metaverse for me is just The Sims. It's The Sims with more intelligence. That's how I view it.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah, but it's like we just get scared by it because it's a new word.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some myths, because that ties into what you just said about like we're scared of it, right? Like what are some myths and misconceptions about just PR, branding, even marketing that you think, kind of scares people?
I think one big myth is that PR takes away your voice. Like if like a publicist would take away the voice of a brand or the voice of somebody representing their personal brand. And that's not true. The reality is that PR simply amplifies who you are already or what your brand is already. And so if you're the kind of brand that is solid in who you are, you know what you want to say, you know what you're doing, what you're not doing, no publicist or PR person can come and tell you what to do, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that's on the good and bad end. So it's on the good end that nobody can control you and shouldn't control you. And it's also on the bad end where sometimes we get the flack if somebody's going off the rails, right? And you have to kind of clean that up. And we all have stories of that. We all see that. Yeah. But I would say that's a big myth, that you're being controlled by like the PR powers or something. That's not how it works. It's very strategic. I think it's also this idea of like when you see on Twitter and stuff, people are like, oh, where's their PR? They need to save them.
I've seen that
most times. PR agencies have more than one person working on a client. There is not one end all fix all person for it. Because if you think about it, even someone like Olivia Pope, she had a team. So that idea that like there's this one person who like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing, like the Wiz who is just controlling all these factors for the brand. It doesn't work that way. Behind you'd be surprised, behind social media post, behind an article, behind all these things, there's usually more than one person, that is actually contributing to the entire voice. And that is why you might feel like, oh, I'm by myself, how are they getting all this done? It's because they're not by themselves. So that's another myth too, not to compare yourself to a brand you've seen kind of establish itself over time, because even if it's a team of interns, they most likely have a team.
You know, on the drive here, I was talking to my assistant about this, and I was mentioning to her how excited I was.
Shout out to your assistant.
Oh, okay. I heard something else. I heard shout out to your sister. Which,
no, I said shout out to your assistant.
Which is my sister.
Oh, yes.
So, Blessing, we're going to give you a free shout out. She's in the room right now, but y'all don't see her. I was mentioning to her how I've seen kind of like... I've seen an increase in brands kind of using Black culture in their branding element. Like you were talking about, you know, sometimes on Twitter you see brands like Wild Now, and it's like, yo, where's their PR strategies? But I've also seen where it looks like chaos to the person outside.
But the team knows.
But the team knows what is happening inside.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, what do you think Black culture has like contributed to that space? Right?
Yeah, I think Black culture most of all has contributed authenticity.
Yeah.
And being able to say what it is. I think that's something that's very special about our culture. I think sometimes some brands manipulate it to a fault. But I think those that actually care about our communities and care about what we have to say, or even if they're not Black owned, those that employ those that can speak to what we care about, I really think that we're the ones that kind of set the tone on, okay, this is what our community cares about and what we're going to do about it, whatever industry it is. I think that there's always voices from our communities that are like, okay, whether I have to like make sure we have Black photographers on set or stylists or whatever the case may be, or product developers, etc. I think that we watch out for our own, most of us, not everybody, of course. There's some people who are selfish and that it's just not their concern. Or maybe, to be fair, not to give people slack, maybe sometimes you're just trying to get yourself out of financial situation and grow wealth for yourself or just figure things out. So that's not everybody's story, but for those that really want to make a difference, typically I do think the role of Black culture has really been to say, for so long our culture hasn't been our own. So now that it is our own, what do we want to say about it? And I think that now that authenticity is seeping into even other brands that are not Black culture influenced, because they're seeing the response. And
for those listening and watching this, like, if you don't know what we're saying here, like, the best way to say is just go on Twitter,
Black Twitter,
and Instagram, and you'll see, you know, it's kind of prevalent.
Exactly.
So with the rise of like social advocacy and our corporate social responsibility, how do you see, you know, branding, PR, evolving in terms of addressing that and the environmental issues?
Environmental issues like technical, like science, or environmental as like in like society? Like society. Okay.
Societal, yeah.
I think that, of course, it would be lovely if everybody cared.
Yeah.
About doing that sort of work. That would be more beneficial for each and every one of us. But what I will say is that I do think publicists, especially publicists of color, have a responsibility when we're in these roles that haven't always been afforded to us, to make sure that voices are heard. I am very passionate about that, but doing it from a genuine place. I don't believe everybody has to, for example, care about trees in a certain way, but maybe you, for example, to give a storyline, you may not care about like trees as far as like the earth of the trees, but you might care that, oh wait, if we don't consider trees, it's going to affect this neighborhood and where people live. So if you're about where the people live, then you support in that avenue, whether it's like doing, maybe a certain brand is doing like a promotion where they donate, or maybe they're going to help create jobs, or like I'm more so of the view of empowering over charity, Like, I think that you can give and establish things for people, but rather teach them how to fish so that they can continue to do it for themselves.
Can you drop that bar again?
Yeah, so like teach people how to fish.
Right. No. What you said about empowering.
I believe in empowering over charity.
Yeah, okay.
Because sometimes what we do as charity actually ends up hurting.
Wow.
I more so believe in partnering with communities to see what will actually help you.
Right.
It's like, I can dump shoes here for you all, or I can help the shoemakers to make a living.
Wow.
Right. So it's like, that's what I mean by being genuine.
Right.
I think corporate responsibility could be genuine to what the brand believes in,
right,
but still make a difference.
Right.
So just because something is going on with maybe like whales in the ocean, there's so many aspects to that. Maybe like if you're in fashion, you might consider, okay, what products could we do that don't affect the ocean, or what materials? Maybe if somebody's in science, they're going to consider, how do we help tourists to experience this beautiful whale watching, but don't affect the water. Like, we can all care about the whales, but everybody has a piece in how they care.
Right.
So I think that's what PR and branding should think about, where it's like corporate responsibility.
Right.
What about your brand is authentic to caring and not just doing something to do it?
Right.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Because so many things need to get done.
Right.
So why not own your part that's genuine to you?
Yeah. And it kind of makes it, I don't want to say easier, but it's less challenge when you know that, like, this is what I'm sticking to, rather than trying to, speak to the mass and like, hey, we do this, because then, like, you're going to be held accountable for that.
Exactly.
So let's talk collaborations, right? Collaborations amongst brands and, public figures, celebrities, and all that. And even on a smaller scale, micro influencers, like I'd say you and I are micro influencers, like, collaborations have seen a significant increase over the course of, I want to say, probably the last like 6-7 years-ish. So do you have any advice as to how to pick the right collaborations? Because sometimes what happens is micro-influencers may just see the bag. And for those who don't understand that, the bag means the money. You might see the money, or you might see like, yo, I really enjoy this product, like, I'll do it for free, or like, I don't know anything about them, but I'll say yes, right? Do you have any advice to picking the right partnerships in that?
Yes, I would say, of course, it starts again with what's that core message.
Yeah.
And even after that, really understanding that whatever I'm saying yes to will create a certain no in the future. And so if
you got to say that again.
Whatever I'm saying yes to,
yeah,
also means a certain no in the future. And so if I know I'm going on a certain track,
right,
and this brand, for example, doesn't align with that track,
right,
it's probably not in my best interest to work with them. Not to say I may never work with them, because sometimes you get so big that you can choose it.
Right.
However, audiences also see through that. It's very like, this doesn't match.
Right.
Like, okay, we see you here making fried chicken with hot sauce, but now you want to come and sell us green smoothies, right? Versus like, if you're somebody more of balance, maybe you're making like oven fried chicken, then you can sell me a smoothie,
right?
Because like, oh great, she makes delicious food, but she's healthy.
Because there's no disconnect.
Hey, there's no disconnect, but you can't tell me that, oh, I'm doing this for this chicken brand. I don't want to say this chicken brand, but then now I'm coming here to work at this farmer's market.
It seems like confusing. A specific.
There's a brand in mind. I'm like, this is weird that she did that. Like,
okay.
Yeah, I don't want to give publicity to brands that are not paying you. But yeah, so it's really just about like what aligns with you. Yeah. So you can do different categories. Like you can do food and something activity based, like fitness or home. You can do different categories, but it should align. Yeah.
So it's great you're making that point, because I remember this was like 2014 or something like that. I don't want to say who it was, but you probably know. But the Fire Festival. You remember that fiasco? So some celebrities who promoted it were held accountable for it. What is your take on that? Like, do you feel like the brand is solely responsible, or do you feel like those who choose to partner and spread that message all should be held accountable?
Yeah, so I think the celebrities should have been held accountable for promoting a event that they weren't too sure about.
Yeah.
But in all fairness too, it also depends on the level of their involvement. Now, if you just wanted me to appear
Right.
I probably cannot be as accountable as somebody who's like, oh, you're vice president of Fire Festival. That's another story.
Right.
So I think that if like we're using people more for, or like working with people more to be the faces of something,
yeah,
there needs to be a distinction for sure between like, oh, hey, I'm actually on the board of Fire Festival versus I am really contributing to just making sure people come.
Right.
That's two different stories. Because a lot of times, like celebrities that are ambassadors, they're really just promoting like what you've told them. They get paid to come and enjoy themselves.
Right.
But if it's someone saying like, oh, this is my festival too, they absolutely should be held accountable. And there's a difference. Like somebody might just be promoting something, but they're not the creator of it.
Right.
Of course, you have to be careful because somebody will still put it on you.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily their fault.
Right.
It's more so like the fault of those that are putting on the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I paid attention while it was happening. We're watching the documentary. I'd have to agree with everything you said. Just because watching the documentary, I was like, I wonder if they knew what was going on behind closed doors. And of course, like we'll never know the private lives, you know, the under the table deals and all that. But I think some level of responsibility should fall on you. But at the same time, you know, I kind of get it. You know, because a lot of my audience, I feel like, are going to be small business owners or those who want to own a small business. I feel like this is a question that I often want to ask the guests. What are some, I know I keep asking for key ideas and advice that you can give, but that's what this podcast is about. But what are some advice that you can give to the smaller businesses? Because oftentimes it feels like you're a small fish swimming in a big pond with, you know, sharks, with these giant companies that have the money and resources to be able to do all these things. Like, what are some advice that you can give to the smaller, you know, mom and pop shops and, you know? Yeah.
I think the only difference a lot of times, besides the resources, of course, between the mom and pops and the larger corporations is that they've had time to think. They have the resources and the money to hire people to think for them.
Right.
While they are able to focus on their category.
Okay.
So I would say the biggest advice I would probably get first is as difficult as it will be for a mom and pop, just in full transparency, it's difficult because you don't always have the time and the resources others have.
Right.
It will be to create your processes.
Right.
Systemize what you do. A lot of times we just do stuff and it's so natural to us. But when you're the only one that does it and knows how to do it, you're putting your business at a disadvantage for growth.
Dang.
Versus like, even if it's just a Microsoft Word document, even if it's you write well and it's written in hand notes.
Yo, hold on. How much did Microsoft pay you? Because this second time you said Microsoft.
Oh, not even Microsoft, Google Docs, whatever. I'm a Google Doc person.
I'm joking.
No, but like I'm a Google Doc person. So I didn't say Microsoft. I know a lot of like most people know how to use Word or whatever. But but I am a Google Doc I'm a Docs person all the way, Google Drive. But so even if it's just like writing out 10 a.m. we come into the store, we do this. 12 we do this. Checklist.
Right.
Things like that. No
like
matter
actionable
items, no matter how small you are, have systems and processes.
Yeah. So
that even whether you're getting an intern, a volunteer, a family member to help you, you can give that to them in those times where you actually need to step back and plan for your business.
Pre-game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need a process. I don't even care if the process is 7 a.m. turn on the coffee machine.
Yeah.
That simple. It's still a process.
Right.
And the bottom line is when you have a process, you can systemize your approach to things so that you can grow. A lot of times we don't grow because there's no system. And we're putting out the same fires over and over again.
Listen, if that was a message in itself, I don't know what it is. Please just repeat that part again.
A lot of times we don't grow because there's no system.
So if you're not growing, consider that you don't have a system in place. I firmly believe what you just said. I've always said it's like being system-based rather than reliance on, you know, people doesn't necessarily mean you're removing the humanity aspect of it. Yeah. But it simply means that you have a vision set in place so that even if your train, figuratively speaking, was to derail, you have like you know where you're supposed to go. You know what I mean? To get back on track. So not to bar myself. Y'all know I rap too.
Period.
Sophia, I don't want to take a lot of time. I do have a few more questions for you. Sure. Then you can go eat that fried chicken and smoothie.
I actually am thinking about chicken, but it's gonna be grilled. I'm trying to eat better these days.
Oh, yo, I think I'm about to start the 75 hard. We'll see how it goes.
Ooh.
The question that I have for you is, you know, you work with a lot of creative clients, and as a creative myself, I understand how, you know, a lot of times you're tied to one specific way of doing things.
Yep.
And you don't even want to listen to
other things,
even if they're like expert professionals in that field. So the question for you is like, how do you navigate that space? Like, how do you navigate that kind of conversation with the creative client who wants to, you know, be tight-fisted with their vision, but you have other ways that they could, you know, strategize?
So I present the facts to them, and then I let it go.
Because numbers don't lie.
Yes, numbers don't lie. And also, even sometimes facts are even like audience feedback. Like facts can be comments.
Okay.
Yeah, so I take data as like, there's also something called social listening. And social listening is when you see how people respond to things like social media wise, or even just like socially, like as a society. So I present like, okay, maybe you said this one thing in this public place. This is the feedback we're getting. And then also here are the numbers with clicks or opens or whatever. If you're kind of like, well, we're not going to go that route. Okay. What route are we going? And then I support it, amplify it. Unless I'm totally against it, then maybe that's another conversation.
Right.
But I navigate it by not being pushy. I'm no longer pushy just because first of all, it just creates a disadvantage at times for you. And then also when you're too pushy as well, it can cause your clients not to trust you.
Yeah.
What I'd rather do is implement what you said, as long as it's not against like integrity or what I believe in strongly. Like sometimes it's like, oh, red or blue.
Right.
That kind of thing. I'm not going to fight you over it, but or be like, never fight your client, of course. But what I will say is figuratively or physically. But what I will say is that sometimes let people like go with the decision people said so they can see the ill results.
Is there a specific budget that is kind of like out of the threshold to not do that? I don't know if that makes sense the way I asked
budget,
it.
like financially? Yeah.
So like, how do you, at what point are you like,
so I'll have to say like, oh, okay, well, this is our agreement.
Okay.
XYZ.
Right.
If more is required, then we require this. Or if it's something where something didn't go right according to what the client wanted. Like I know in our agreements, we list that our services do not guarantee features or placements. And so
I love that.
Yes, like I can pitch till I'm blue in the face.
I love that.
If our environment, media wise, is just not interested in a certain story at the time, it's just not. So that's when I get creative on like other ventures that I can do.
I love that.
I've learned that you have to take at least I do, you have to take a very scientific approach to branding, PR, and marketing. Because if you don't take a scientific approach, you're going to be too much in your feelings about stuff and you're not going to be able to measure accurately. So like as a publicist, and every publicist has their like gift and their skill. I'm definitely a much more measurable type of publicist. I'm very much, we pitched this much, we landed this is what we can do. Or we tried this, Essence is not answering, this is what we can do instead. That's how I view stuff. So I've also kind of trained my clients, and I choose to work with clients that also see things from a more experimental approach. Instead of like, we said this, so it has to be this way. Because there's just a maturity with clients that I like to work with, or brands that understand that you don't know how it's going to go. You can have one idea and think that it's like, oh, whatever, and that's what your audience loves. And then you can have an idea that your team is obsessed with and your audience doesn't get it.
Honestly, I think the industry of marketing as a whole needs that. Because I've had like, you know, one-on-one consultation with certain clients of mine, and like one of the first things that I tell them is that like I will not guarantee a specific number. You can't. You know, and I like what you said about the try aspect, the experimental, because I think we need more of that. Like there's no way for you to guarantee that like X amount a year. And I know a lot of marketers have profited off people doing that. Like they're like, we'll guarantee you this,
but it's not authentic.
You know? But it's not authentic. And then sometimes it's like people don't understand impressions are not clicks. You know what I mean? So it's like someone will come in and be like, oh, we'll guarantee you 500,000 impressions, but it's like they're not explaining to you what's the next step, what's the call to action. Like, so I appreciate that genuine response from you. Yeah, like, because I mean, I can guarantee you, for example, how many people I will reach out to. I can guarantee you that there'll be a strategy. I can go through that strategy with you. So when it comes to my clients that I work with in brands, I guarantee the stuff that is in my power. The things that I can't control, like once it's out there,
we don't guarantee that. But the things where it's like, okay, you map this out, you do this, you do that. Yeah, by all means, like I can tell you, oh, we're going to make sure to have a strategy for events, media, and partnerships. That I can guarantee you. Who from those categories we're going to work with, these are our aims.
Right.
If it doesn't work out, these are our second tier that like, okay, this will also still be a great opportunity.
Yeah.
But I've learned not to guarantee the results of things.
Right.
More so guarantee the effort,
right,
the services, and the fact that we will measure the data to have a plan. That's what I choose to guarantee.
And on that note, like you're dropping so much bars. I'm like, yo, if we could go on like 3 hours of this. You know what I mean? Like, as I mentioned earlier, like during the podcast, as we were driving here, my sister and I, we're just talking about how professional you are, like your reputation and whatnot. So I definitely appreciate you sharing insights. One of the last things that I wanted to ask you as a question, and I know all the interviewers ask this question, but I'm going to ask anyway. If someone wanted to get into the space that you're in right now, PR, brand strategy, what are some actionable steps that you can tell them to put at the forefront of their mind and actually do?
Sure. First of all, really research the industry. I can't tell you how many people tell me that they want to do this industry and they think that it just happens. It doesn't.
Yep.
The same way people research what they want to do to get into the medical field or in business or, I don't know, to become a nurse, whatever the case may be, is the same way that same effort is needed when it comes to entering the industry. So that's number one, really taking the research to know what about the industry intrigues you and how are the ways you can enter it. There's agencies. You can work for brands in-house specifically. You can be a freelancer. You can work for yourself. So many ways to go about it. So really taking that time to understand, how do I want to go about it? Secondly, really looking at people you might admire in the industry and seeing how you can connect with them. Now, of course, not everybody you want to mentor, you can mentor you. But looking at LinkedIn, listening to interviews, seeing their story, like something you can simply do is look at a LinkedIn profile or Instagram, whatever, of somebody's website and see what they've done and how you can mirror it. That's a strategy right there. And then thirdly, something that's coming soon. I'm going to be working on something to help people get into the industry.
Hey!
That's an exclusive.
Yo, that's an exclusive. Did you just drop this exclusively on the Creative Aspect?
No one's heard that
That's
yet.
love, yo.
Yeah.
No one has heard it yet, okay? So we're not...
It's pending. It's pending.
I'm actually really excited about that. Like if you're listening or hearing this is my genuine reaction. She didn't tell me this. I didn't know about it.
No one knows about it.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I feel like I have a guess as to how you're going to tackle it. Or not how, but what realm it's going to be. But wow, I'm super. That's a great note to end on. Do you have let's segue into what I'm going to ask you as a closing this episode. Is there anything that you want to tell the viewers, like and this could be promoting, like, you know, certain things that you feel like will happen or certain things that you're achieving? Is there anything you want to, you know, say to them?
Yes. Really, just because I know who listens to this, right? This podcast is for creatives by creatives.
Hey.
I want to say.
You'll need to be on.
Thanks, Siri.
Wow, Siri. I want to say, number one, to any creative listening, it's okay to take a break.
Look in the hold on. Look in the camera.
It's okay to take a break and come back. Or maybe do something else, but it's okay. And there's grace for you in breaks. That's what I want to drop.
I mean, what do you say after that? Well, thank you, Sofia,
Of course.
for it. Before we get off, I have a tradition that I started with the last episode. To end the episode, I like to look in the camera and say nothing at all. So,
okay.
So if you can, just look in your camera. I'll look into mine for 10 seconds silence. Okay. And that concludes another episode of The Creative Aspect, a podcast all about marketing, branding, and advertising. Today's guest was Sofia, episode 2. So I'll just see you at the next one. Peace.